I always love when people talk about self-love because it starts to get to the crux of what really matters in life. Now, of course, what you and I might think of as self-love might be very different. And certainly, at least in the last 15 or 20 years or so, there's been a lot of focus on this. And I can only conjecture as to the reasons why. Um, Number one, I feel like there's been, at least in certain pockets, in certain dimensions of life, there's been kind of this spiritual renaissance, if you will, um, of so many different. It probably started, at the turn of the century with influential authors and teachers like Eckhart Tolle, um, who obviously introduced the world to some amazing teachings and spiritual practices, or at least built upon what was originally there. But I think that has, along with the ability for that information and that wisdom to spread across like wildfire, through the various social media channels that are at our fingertips, I think that is a major reason for why the topic of self-help has really gained so much steam over the past couple of decades. I think another important facet has been just this overall, push to really dedicate ourselves to our work, right? That's that famous expression: "Do you work to live, or do you live to work?" And I feel like, at least in the Western societies that I have lived in, or I have visited, or discovered, there's definitely more of a predisposition of living to work, right? Work is kind of the entire crux of our lives, and that's unfortunate, right? Because it misses the whole picture. Work should not be all of life. It should be a part of life. It is an important part of life, but it shouldn't be all of life, right? So I feel like the more that we have just um, been in the daily grind and pushed ourselves to the very limits, burning the midnight oil, spending all this time, working for the man or working for the organization, it's really taken our minds and our bodies to their absolute limits. And so the concept of self-love comes in as sort of a way to balance that, to bring order, to bring love, to bring compassion, and to recognize that we aren't machines, but we are in fact human beings. And so I think, these factors, along with several others, have enabled self-love to really be a key cornerstone of so many of today's spiritual teachings. But as I mentioned, there can be different interpretations of self-love, right? To many, self-love can mean opening a bottle of wine after a long day of work, or, spending time with friends, going on a shopping spree, doing a vacation. These are all great things, right? I'm certainly not advocating that you shouldn't do them or you shouldn't do them in moderation. But I think a lot of the times when we do talk about self-love, we're missing a very key piece of it, which is we're not talking about the self that is the body or that even is the mind. We're talking about a much deeper and authentic self. And I think that's the key element that, at least not all, right? I don't want to cast a wide blanket here and say that every person or every teaching that has focused on self-help is missing one of the major pieces. But certainly in a lot of the teachings that you see today, they fail to kind of go one or two layers deeper than that. And perhaps some of that may be due to just, understanding the audience and whether or not people want to spend the time to go deeper and to do the inner reflection. But certainly, if you're watching this video, if you've been following the channel, you know that I love to go deeper. Not deeper to the point where we're, just in this rabbit hole and we're just talking philosophically for hours on end, but really to kind of get to the core of our being. And so, in order to love yourself, you must first know yourself. And to me, that is the highest and most purest form of self love. Not when you go sit in the jacuzzi or give yourself a massage, go to a massage place and do all these things. These are all great, but at the end of the day, you still haven't really spent any time getting to the core of who you really are, right? You haven't spent time identifying your limiting beliefs, something that I talked about in a previous video. You haven't spent the time addressing some of the emotional wounds and traumas of your past. You haven't spent the time really digging into your ultimate purpose and your ultimate identity. If you haven't done these things, then it's truly hard to love yourself or to give self love. Really, self love at its, ultimate meaning is really about understanding who that self is. Only when you can understand yourself can you truly love yourself. And if all of those activities that I mentioned are a gateway or a stepping stone to help you do this inner exploration, then all the better, right? But at least I hope you're getting the idea by now that it's not simply enough to just do the things, right? We are very much a culture of doing and thinking, not so much experiencing, feeling, and reflecting. These are aspects that sometimes go unnoticed, or they're skills that aren't perhaps encouraged or taught or whatever. But I feel like it's so important to spend the time to understand yourself. I talk about it a lot. Self discovery is perhaps one of the most important pieces to your spiritual growth. And in turn, your happiness, your fulfillment, even your physical health, right? If you're suffering from stress all the time because you have all these worries, you have all these thoughts, and you have no way to effectively cope with them, because perhaps there are elements of your life where you're not prioritizing your spiritual growth. You're not spending that time to uncover what these inner struggles and challenges are. Then you're not doing anything to love yourself. You're applying a band-aid, but you're not actually solving the deeper wounds, the deeper problems, the deeper challenges. And I know it's difficult, right? I'm not trying to suggest that it's easy and that if you do it, you're not going to encounter difficulties and everything will be fine in a day or two. I know it's really difficult, but believe me, the alternative is much, much more difficult, and it's much, much more worse. Because to live a life carrying a burden, carrying a trauma, carrying shadows, inner shadows that blind us from our true realities is all the more difficult. And I'd rather spend all of the energy that I can to uncover my true essence. So, self love, as I've been talking about, is so much more deeper than perhaps many of us are accustomed to. And I think this is a key aspect. If we can truly understand and resonate with it, this is a key aspect that can reveal so much opportunities for our growth, for our spiritual awakening, right? Because then all of a sudden, going to a massage, for example, doesn't just address, the physical knots and, the physical pain in our body. That's almost the metaphor for, addressing our mental blocks and our mental knots, right? Use the experience, but use it in a way where you can truly penetrate to your core. And it's a wonderful thing. Sometimes when I'm practicing yoga, and admittedly I haven't really been able to create enough time for it recently, but one of the things when I watch kind of a guided video, some of my more favorite videos are the ones where the instructor uses analogies of different asanas and different positions or poses. And when I perform it as it's shown or as it's instructed, I notice that I not only relieve a lot of tension and stress in my body, but I also relieve a lot of tension and stress in my being. Somehow, through that one analogy, the yoga experience becomes more than just the physical, or even more than just the mental. It really gains a spiritual element and a spiritual potency to it that transforms the entire experience for me. I don't even know how to describe it in words, to be honest, because I feel like this weight has been lifted off my chest, and I feel like I can see again, I can breathe again, I can truly understand what it means to be me. And of course, life happens. It's not that you remain in this state forever, but as long as you understand that it is there and it is always accessible, as long as you make the time, as long as you make the effort, then you can always come back to it, right? That is for me, the yoga for me, especially the ones that truly resonate on a deeper level, they capture so many different aspects of self love: the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the existential. All these aspects that are necessary for living a healthy and complete life. Again, it's not that I'm suggesting that you skimp out on, the physical or even the mental forms of relief. These are all important, right? You need to take care of the body just as much as you're taking care of the soul. But there's been a lot of focus on the mind and the body, and perhaps not so much on the soul. And I actually did a video about this not too long ago, where I talk about the importance of our spiritual health in addition to our physical health and in addition to our mental health. So this is really where self-love kind of comes to the forefront. And if we follow these principles, if we follow and give the proper time and attention to our true self and understanding our true self, then that will certainly embody the deepest meaning of self-love. That's where one can truly love oneself. And of course, the beauty of it is, even though it's called self-love, the true meaning of that term is not just to one individual, but rather all of humanity, all of existence, all of being, right? Because at the end of the day, who is your true self? Your true self is oneness. Your true self is everything and everyone. It's not just this body that you temporarily occupy. It's all of this dimension, this experience that we call existence. And so when you embody this deeper form of self love, you actually are able to share this with the rest of the world, right? It bleeds over into your relationships and how you treat others, how you treat um, the world, how you carry yourself, right? All of a sudden, the bridges and the barriers that were dividing us, all of a sudden they start to kind of fall apart, and we see our commonality. We see how similar we truly are. And I think that's something that is a huge challenge for us in this world that we're living in today, where everything unfortunately has become so divisive and so um, I don't know if I want to call it politically charged, but there's definitely a black and white feeling to existence. And I'm not saying that that hasn't existed before, but it certainly feels like it's been amplified in recent years. And you're either with us or you're against us, right? That's kind of the mentality. You're either this kind of state or you're this kind of state. You're either on this party or you're on that party. You either believe in this or you believe in that. You're either a part of this faith or you're part of that faith. And it's like, why are we creating all of these divisions when our true essence tells us that we're one? Why are we saying that this way of practicing a faith is going to be more acceptable to God than this form of faith? Right? We're all missing We're failing to see the bigger picture, which is our common humanity. And this isn't just some kumbaya stuff that, people say to feel good and to kind of ignore the bigger issues or the bigger differences, but it's really getting to the heart of the matter and calling it for what it really is, which is that self-love is love, right? You cannot truly love another person until you first love yourself. And you cannot love yourself until you know yourself. So love is born through awareness, is born through awakening. And it's no surprise that the people that exhibit the most injustices, the most hatred, the most bigotry, the most pain, the most suffering are also the ones that are the most benighted, that are the most uneducated, that are the most ill-informed, and that are the most unaware. It's shocking when you put it into those terms, but it's amazing what spiritual development and spiritual growth and spiritual education can do, not just for your own life, but through all of humanity, right? It's that's I think what I ultimately want to impart is that yes, your whole life will completely transform when you practice true self-love. But the beauty of it is that others' lives will ultimately transform. Even if it's not ultimately apparent to you in that moment, your very being changes the energies and the frequencies around you. You've heard of stories before of people where they have such an amazing magnetic charisma or lightness or peaceful aura to them that just stepping into the room can change the entire tone of that setting. And it's remarkable, right? I've heard stories of it where truly people, they may not on the surface seem like much, right? It might not be this grand display of this Zen master, if you will, but just people that you can tell have spent so much time working on themselves that they have eliminated the ego, that there is no room for the false self anymore. And all they are is love. All they are is light. All they are is a true embodiment of God, the Creator. And people notice, people stand up. It's not that everyone is at that state in this moment. Certainly, we all have the potential to be that way, but it is a long and difficult journey. But therein lies the reward as well. The things that are most difficult are often the most rewarding. And you can ask me, but I don't think there is anything more difficult or more rewarding than to travel the journey inward, than to truly unlearn everything we've learned, to truly address and face and overcome all of our limitations so that we can shed away this human layer and embody the spiritual layer. This is self-love. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got a deeper and stronger appreciation for what self-love really is, or what I believe self-love really should be, which is knowing yourself and ultimately knowing who you are, knowing your place in this world, and knowing that you are connected with everything and everyone. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like. Would love to hear your comments as always. I know that, obviously in this channel, there's not a lot of views and not a lot of comments, but certainly the ones that have spent the time, these are all pretty long videos. They're pretty in-depth videos, right? It's not something that you would casually watch as you would kind of, scrolling through your phone or watching Netflix. They really do require a certain level of attention and a certain level of commitment, which if you've made it to this point and you've been watching these videos, I give you a lot of credit for that because you truly are someone who has found the value of not only these videos, but of spiritual development in general. And so I truly applaud you for getting to this point, and I can only encourage you to keep going. Keep discovering what self love really means. And by doing so, I can assure you that not only your life will change, but others will as well. And you'll be able to really leave a lasting mark on this world. So, with that, I wish you a wonderful day. I wish you a lots of love, self love, but in essence, all kinds of love. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it, then please consider subscribing as well. I've said this before, but a lot of the people that actually view these videos are from those that haven't yet subscribed. So if you've made it this far and you've shown interest in this video but are not subscribed yet, then I definitely encourage you to consider subscribing and joining the community to be informed of all the latest videos that come out on a weekly and regular basis. But for now, thank you as always for watching. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your being and for giving me this space to sort of express my ideas and to connect with you on a deeper level. And I truly do wish you, the ultimate success on this journey because it truly is the best journey one can ever take. So thank you again. Wish you a wonderful day and week ahead.